สวัสดีครับคุณเจมส์ Norbert Ivanyi right
Yeah
I right spell
Yeah
okay
That's it.
Thank you so much for coming to Thailand สุดยอดมือกีตาร์นะครับจากเซอร์นะครับซึ่งวันนี้คุณเจมส์จะเอากีตาร์ซิกเนเจอร์ของเขานะครับมาด้วยแล้วก็เดี๋ยวเราจะมาคุยกันหลายๆเรื่องสำหรับ Core Progressive Metal นะครับห้ามพลาดนะครับ Let's start for the first question
Sure
How did you start playing the music and turn to play guitar as I know you start to play drum Okay
Yeah so I started playing drums first that was my first instrument when I was maybe 10 or 11 years old. It was a bit difficult to do, obviously living in the apartment buildings. The police kept coming. So my friend, his sister had a guitar in the house and I thought, hey, can I borrow that? And he very kindly let me take it home and borrow it. And I just never put it down. And I started a little bit late. I think I started playing guitar when I was about 18. Or 19 years old and just never really stopped. So I think the first bands that I was really into were like classic rock, like The Doors, Led Zeppelin, Jimi Hendrix, Deep Purple, AC/DC, classic rock kind of stuff. And eventually, kind of worked my way up through, the heavier styles and then started getting into the more progressive instrumental stuff, which is where I am today.
And after that, you turned to play guitar. How did you develop your skill?
So I guess I went to a music university at the same time that I did high school. And I learnt there very much so the importance of practicing and, hard work. And everybody at the college was much better than me. So I had to work very hard to, try and practice as much as possible. Yeah, after that, I was playing in bands and touring a lot and playing like session guitar for artists and trying to do as much stuff as I could. Okay. So I guess I was always surrounded by really good players and that kind of made me be a better player.
You start from the classic rock and
yes.
then you turn to the progressive metal.
Yes.
It's quite different thing. What happened?
Yeah. So I think, playing rock music on guitar is so fun. To be challenged as a guitarist, the heavier the music gets and, going into the progressive stuff, I think it's just so challenging and fun to play on guitar. It drew me to want to write that kind of music because, it forces your technique to be really good and for you to have a wide kind of influence of music to bring under the umbrella. So yeah, that's why I love it so much. I just love the challenge of writing that kind of music.
When you start to play the serious music, who is the guitar player that you love very much or influence?
It's tough. I think in the very beginning, Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin was a very important inspiration as a player and just as a musician in general, because he was not very technical, but, he was clearly a guitarist that was concerned with making music, not making guitar music. So Jimmy Page for me was very important, and to this day is kind of a beacon of, that it should always be about the music and the vibe and the kind of atmosphere that you're trying to create with the music. I could list all the players that influenced me a lot, like Jeff Loomis, John Petrucci, obviously, these very technical players. That is very exciting to look at and to study when you're trying to get better. I think Guthrie Govan would be the modern guy that I look up to and am very inspired by and who I think has just pushed the envelope of guitar playing so far for arguably my generation. But, today there are so many great players who are just, pushing the instrument further than it's ever gone. So there's no lack of inspiration out there.
Okay, after you graduate from the Australian Institute of Music, AIM, you have band, you have the tour a lot, and then finally you decide to making your own music by yourself. Okay, for the first album, maybe 6 songs.
Yeah, it was
called Aphasia.
That's right.
The sound seemed like a progressive metal, and you mix with the vibe of the 60s, 70s.
Yes, yeah.
What is the concept behind this album?
So I don't know if there was so much a concept, but I think that album has a lot more metal playing on it. And that was because I had just come out of years of playing in metal bands. So my style, I guess, was still much more metal focused. Being my first solo kind of album, I did decide to do some acoustic material in there and experiment with different sounds. So for me, that was the first time I felt comfortable bringing my classic rock kind of influences into like a heavier setting. And that has really shaped my whole sound moving forward, which is, what I do a lot more of these days.
So because the metal guy, a lot of the metal guy in the present day, they always list for the new sound, the modern sound,
right.
So different.
Yes.
So you think another side, it seems like okay, I have to go back to maybe 60 or 70 and
that's it.
And add on about playing heavy and modern groove.
Yeah. Yeah, that's essentially what I'm doing now. I still have my metal influences and my metal roots. For me, the fun challenge is, how do I continue to write music that is heavy, not just in tone and stuff like that, but in atmosphere, and bring in as much of those classic rock influences as I can. So, I use a pretty traditional high gain kind of guitar sound, not very like heavy down tuned. I still play in standard tuning, and I have a lot of like retro and vintage keyboards in the albums to give it that 60s and 70s prog kind of flavor. So for me, that is the fun challenge, is how do I bring all of that stuff from classic rock into kind of, I guess, technical standards of heavy playing today and try and make something fresh and unique.
You said you use the standard tune.
Yes.
But the sound is not seem like a standard. It seems like a low D or something.
Sure.
Low,
Sure. Yeah. So I guess I hear that a lot. People are always surprised when they find out that I play in standard tuning. And I suppose the only credit I can give there is that I try to write music that sounds heavy and dark. So I think people, might think, oh, he's playing in a heavy tuning, so it's quite heavy music. But a lot of that heaviness comes from the other instruments. Heavy, like a heavy drum kind of mix and, large, heavy bass kind of sound. But my guitar sound is pretty normal, pretty standard, just like Marshall rock kind of standard tuning sound.
Okay, for your first album, what is your gear that you use? This is the first step.
Yeah. So on Aphasia, I was still, like I said, kind of coming out of my metal band days. So I recorded that with my amps, actually, my old amps. I used a 5150 a PV. And I also used a Mesa Boogie Mark V. So those were the two amps that I used on it. And for guitar, I think I was using my first, I had a Suhr Standard, so long before all this. So I just had a standard.
Like a C1 classic?
It wasn't a classic, it was like a standard, two humbuckers, same kind of shape and everything as the classics, but it's just called a Suhr Standard. I think that's all I used on it. Just those two amps, and I played them direct in with like speaker emulation, and just that's standard.
It sounds so amazing.
Yeah.
What are you missing?
Yeah. It's a big sound on that one.
And another thing, I was surprised with your song. You have something like a cinematic vibe.
Yeah.
Love this very much. It's very beautiful thing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, for the next, you launch out the EP album. There is only 3 songs.
Yes.
Usurper.
Oh yeah. Usurper.
Usurper. Okay. What do you think about this? So there is the Middle East melody or something.
Yeah. Yeah. So that record. I wanted to change up the flavor a little bit and make it kind of more inspired by like retro film score horror music. So it has lots of like kind of spooky sounds, like thinking of Halloween, this kind of stuff. Kind of dark, but not in a traditional dark way, more in a kind of like horror movie, horror trailer kind of thing. Funnily enough, I actually recorded that EP with a old SG. Yeah, which I have in storage, but at the time I was using I think it was a 1992 standard, like one of those 61 reissue SGs. And so I just wanted to do something a little different. So yeah, that whole EP was recorded with an old Gibson SG, funnily enough.
You come back again with your new EP, Dena Lawish.
Yes, that's it.
It still have something like a previous album, but it's so I have to say is the more seriously.
Yes. Yeah. So that one much more heavy. Like bigger kind of drum sounds. I was working with David Horgan, who did the drums on that. Yeah, that EP was more me coming back to explore the heavier kind of sounds. And there are two songs on that EP, Pray Darkly and Terraform, which we play live. I actually played it yesterday at the clinic. Yeah, that record was a little bit more of a step towards the heavier, like earlier stuff, which I wanted to explore, because by that point I had the original version of this guitar, so I was starting to see what this could do a little bit more of. So it was a popular EP. We still play two songs from that live.
Okay, and after that, I just want to say everything was changed.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
So we call the first EP and album for the three album.
Yeah.
The previous is so quite different from the new album.
Yeah.
Omen was some.
That's it.
What happened about this? You make something like a fusion music.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so Omen Faustum was the first kind of full-length album I had done since the second one. And yeah, you're right. I was very into the fusion influence in that one. So my thinking was I want to make a record that is, very technical and heavy, but uses mostly like single coil or split tone kind of sound. So most of the album is like with single coils or on the split. But yeah, I was really, really vibing lots of funk and fusion influences at that time. So I thought, how do I get like the heavy and the funk fusion stuff to put together? And so that's really what that whole album was about. I was trying to keep the songs shorter as well, because obviously, a lot of the songs that I do 5 minutes plus, some 10 minutes. This one I was like, I really want to get it down to like 3-4 minutes, just so the songs are like tight and concise. So yeah, it was tricky. It was tricky trying to have like fusion kind of funk elements, but keep it like really heavy. So it was a really fun record. I think that's probably my most popular record, that one. Everyone knows that one. Yeah, it was a bit of a big break for me, that album.
For this album, what gear you use? I think it's so different from the first one.
Yes. Omen Faustum, I used mostly my Antique Classic S, and it was loaded single coil at the time. And I actually used a hybrid amp and fractal kind of setup. So I was using the Friedman BE100 amp and the Dirty Shirley amp, and they were both being reamped and fed into my XFX2 at the time, my old fractal unit. So I would say 80% of the songs were recorded using the Antique Classic S, and one of them was with an Antique T, like the Telecaster style one, and one of them was recorded with the original version of this before I had the signature guitar. So yeah, lots of classic guitar kind of stuff, not like really heavy metal kind of gear. And yeah, it was cool to actually use the amps on that record and not using the digital stuff.
The sound is so quite totally different.
Yes, different
and
sound.
Your guitar sound is so very big and very strong.
Yes.
After that, you launch out the EP again, and you change everything again. Okay, it's called Sigil.
Yes.
You change to the acoustic vibe.
Yeah.
What happened about your thing?
What happened? I think really what happened was when Omen Faustum was released, it was a very, very busy time guitar-wise for a few years for me. Recording Omen Faustum took me a few years to make, so I was working on it very hard over a few years. I also did 2 courses with JTC while I was making that. I was also touring a lot and doing tab books with Sheet Happens Music, and the signature guitar was coming out, so there was lots of stuff going on with that. So I think when Omen Faustum was kind of done and finished, I actually needed a break from electric guitar. Not that I fell out of love with it or anything, but my inspiration to make electric guitar music just kind of went temporarily away. I didn't feel drawn to play electric guitar. I didn't really want to pick it up. I'd just been doing nothing but electric guitar for years at that point. So I thought it would be, looking back, kind of a controversial, weird time, because, I just had a signature guitar come out and lots of people discovering what I do. But I thought a good way to get back fall in love with music again is to do some things that I always wanted to do but just never did. So one of them was I love playing acoustic guitar. You know, I've always been a fingerstyle acoustic guitar player. So I thought the next fun challenge could be how do I make a kind of heavy progressive EP but with acoustic guitar. You know, and so that's what I set out to do. I brought those two things together, and I actually loved making Sigil. It had me falling back in love with music again, and it happened very easily. Obviously, the songs are very long. They're all 10-minute songs, so that wasn't by design. It's just how they came out. I was worried that all my fans would be like, what is this, you know, when it came out, but thankfully people really liked it. So
I love it too.
Oh, good. Excellent. Thank you. So it just made me feel a bit more comfortable to express all of the musical things that I want to do and know that they can safely kind of land under the umbrella of my solo project.
What gear you use to record?
Yes. So I have a Martin, an old OM21. Which is like, you know, a parlor kind of acoustic guitar. So I used that, and I was recording with a range of different mics, but mostly Neumann mic into a Chandler preamp. Yeah, that's it. David Horgan did the drums on that one. Liam Horgan, who is his brother, my bass player, he actually came to my house and did the bass on that one.
Okay, for the next side intimation.
Oh yeah, different again. Yeah.
Okay, different again. Yesterday, someone talked with me. He asked me about your album. Hey Dio, I listened to the James album. I asked him which album. The last album. Yeah. There is no guitar.
Yeah. Hilarious. Yeah, it's true.
What happened?
Yeah, what happened? So when I did Sigil, and there was a good response to it, I thought, okay, cool, I can keep exploring and making the kind of music that I've always been interested in making in, and not have to be too worried that my audience, who is mostly there for the guitar, is gonna, you know, have a panic. So yeah, I love synthesizers and electric keyboards. That's a huge part of what I've always done, and it's always been a big part of my music. Always lots of keyboard. So I just thought this could be a good time to do that, just take the guitar away. So I wrote a fun little collection of songs just on keyboards and with all my Moog synthesizers. And my very long time friend Mike Avename recorded the drums for me in Los Angeles. I was actually there in the studio when he did it, so he did the drums in LA. He's a master of everything when it comes to vintage drum sounds. So he, you know, put together a nice vintage Gretsch drum kit, and off we went. Yeah, that album, I thought people are going to be like, what is this? You know, this is no good. But thankfully people really enjoyed it. And by the time I had done Sigil and Sign Intimation, I was starting to feel ready to pick up the guitar again and feeling more inspired again. So I'm glad that I got that out of my system. I might do it again in the future. But yeah, that's what happened.
I think in the synthesizer part for you, you put in every album. It seems like you put for the vibe or something.
Yeah.
If everyone listen to this your album, every album, and put a headphone in your ear, I think they will hear something about your synthesizer or something that you hide.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Like no matter what the sound is, I always try to make it sound like it's something that I did. You know, like it's still got my flavor in there.
Your latest single, the Psycho Pre-Nick
Inquisition? Yeah, it's a big one. It's a long name, that one.
You turn everything to fusion again.
Again. Yeah. So, funnily about that, that's when I was starting to want to play electric guitar a little bit more. So I thought,
cause you have okay,
that's right, and I recorded that song with this guitar. So I thought something cool, the idea of getting back into making like electric guitar music again, would be to release a single, which I'd never done before. I'd never put out one song, so I was like, let's try and just do one song. But what I wanted to do was make one song that had everything from my last 3 EPs in it. So I wanted it to have the fusion stuff from Omen. I wanted it to have the kind of 60s, 70s keyboard sounds from Sign Intimation and some of the stuff from Sigil, the acoustic stuff. So I made one big 10-minute kind of song that incorporates those last 3 EPs into one big song. And I had a lot of fun with that, and it really got me excited to play guitar again.
Okay, this is the end of the album and concept. I think everyone know very well about your background.
Sure.
Okay, one thing I love so much about your cover. This is really wow for the cover. What happened about this? So because there is something like a hidden gem in each album.
Correct.
You work with Jeff Christensen, right? How did you find him? And what happened about? Okay, you decide to use his picture.
I grew up in an artistic house. I've always loved art, and I've always been a big fan of surrealist art, right? So that kind of dark, like horror surrealism. I've always really loved that kind of art. I've always been a fan of Jeff Christensen. I've been aware of his art for a long time. And so when I started doing solo records, I knew that I wanted to have surrealist paintings as the album art.
He used oil painting.
Oil paintings. Yeah. So I'm a big believer that album art really makes an album better. You know, when you listen to the music and you see the art and they pair together, it makes the experience much more visual. I just simply found his email address and I hit him up and I asked him if he'd ever done album art and, you know, sent him some of my music and asked if he might be interested in working with me on some art. And he was, which is great. So we've done pretty much all the records together, and he is amazing, and he, you know, everything is done on oil paint. And so it's been a wonderful collaborative journey that we've been on together, and I hope to be working with him for as long as he'll want to work with me.
Very good idea. I love it's something like a Hurley music from
Totally. Yeah.
Hurley movie or from 60s, 70s.
Yeah.
It's very classical.
That's the idea. Yeah, that surrealist kind of like nightmare kind of feel.
What is your process when you writing the songs and compose?
It's usually the same every time, which is that I like to build up a clear idea of what it is I'm going to do in my mind first. So I try not to, you know, let's just say I have time to write something. I try not to sit down at the guitar and be like, you know, write a riff or something and then try and make a song around that. I try to think, all right, when the listener hits play, what's the first thing they're going to hear? You know, so I always think of the very beginning of the song first and build that up in my head, whether that's a guitar part or a keyboard part or whatever it is. I always try to start at the very beginning. So not try to write in the middle and then go forwards and backwards. I start at the very beginning. Once I've written the beginning or the first page, for me it's easy to then just keep on building upon the first thing, you know, and work in what I call a linear sense. So start at the beginning, work until the very end. The process is almost always like that for me. I have a day on, so I'll sit in the studio for a day and I'll work and I'll try things and I'll record. And then the next day, I always try not to go in the studio. I just listen. So I might sit down and, you know, have a coffee and just listen to the yesterday's work. And that will help me decide if, oh, everything I did yesterday was bad, start again. Or, you know, okay, maybe there's some things to housekeep here or to develop. So the process is usually always like that. I try to imagine it first and then come to whatever instrument and go from there.
Okay, in your song, there is art of the time signature.
Yes.
How did you develop it?
So I don't know if I like intentionally think about those things, but you know, the ideas that I imagine, I sometimes they just have very complicated time signatures, all kinds of modulation going on, but it's not something that I think about when I'm writing. I don't think, okay, I'm going to write something in 6/8 or whatever it is. I'm just merely bringing out the idea, and if it happens to fall into some very bizarre time signature, which it usually does, you know, very complicated, then that's okay because obviously I have the drumming background so I can work my way around it. I think I'm always trying to think about, no matter how complicated it gets, I just want it to feel not too complicated. That's kind of how that happens.
Please give me some advice about your practice time signature.
So a good way to think about it is to practice music that has a lot of that. So a lot of things that make time signatures difficult to work with is the flow. That built-in clock that we have is being interrupted constantly. So it's good to listen to and study music and memorize riffs or drum parts. Don't play in 4/4 that have different time signatures. Once you feel comfortable memorizing it musically, I used to get the music memory down and then I would start to count, 1, 2, 3, and be like, oh, it didn't go to 4 there, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And just practice combining what you're hearing with actual numbers. It helps to make sense of it a little bit.
And transcribe your song.
Huh? Yeah.
And transcribe your song.
Good luck. Yeah. Enjoy.
Okay, we talk about time signature. You have the problem about the arrangement for your song. So because you have so many parts of the song.
But obviously the music I make is progressive, meaning that it's usually, there's no repeating parts and it's kind of always progressing to the next chapter or flavor or mood, whatever it is. For me, that's where the bulk of the work is making the song seem quite seamless. You don't want it to feel like it's doing one thing and then all of a sudden it changes and feels push and pulley. So for me, the work is always in making the progressiveness of it feel natural and feel directional. It's difficult and makes me angry all the time.
Okay, practice more time signature until you dream it.
Yes, exactly. You dream it. That's right. You got to hear the metronome when you go to bed at night, like I do.
Okay, about the chord progression. How did you deal with the chord progression? So because there is not much about the chord progression in your song, but you focus on the rhythm part.
Yes, yeah. I think for me, thinking about chords and chord progressions, a lot of the way I do it is actually quite childish and basic. I often, a part of the process that I like is hearing a sound and whether it be a chord or a kind of texture that I'm going for, a good knowledge base of connecting that with chords. So often I just have to sit down and try and work out what the chords are. If I play for a second, a good example of that was on one of the tracks from Sigil, this intro part here. Right, so that is something that it just took me a long time to piece together each note. Yeah, so a big part of the process, for example, is just trying to get the start of the chord correct. So this sound, I knew that was kind of in the ballpark, and I'm trying to expand on that.
So you have the common note.
Yeah, that's right. So this sound also, that kind of sound is also something I'm really interested in. Right, so now I needed it to resolve, right? So the F sharp in there sounds resolved to me. So once I had this down, I thought, all right, let's see if I can get a pattern going on my right hand. Right, bring in that F sharp. And that was once I had that down, I was like, all right, let's get that looping. Loops. And tension for the turnaround. Right, so just adding in that D into it, which is so really that's all there is to the process. I don't have a strong theory background, so for me a lot of it is very just hands on the guitar, trying to discover the sound that I'm looking for.
Of your songs, which song that you want the guitar player or musician try to transcribe and analyze?
I think a popular one that a lot of guitar players like playing is a song called A Presage Voodoo. It's the second track from memory, I think, off Omen Faustum. I think a lot of players like that song. I've seen a lot of covers of it and people learning a lot of those riffs because it was just a lot more riff focused, lots more riffs, a bit more straight up and down, lots of funk elements. This was the riff. Might be a bit of noise here, but Like a lot of guys love that intro riff. So that's a good one to transcribe and learn. Not too hard.
Okay.
At least not at the beginning.
Really?
Yeah, it gets pretty hard, but at least not at the beginning.
Okay. Which song did you have to tweak over and over until it was perfect? And
So-
what was the problem with this song?
All right, so there's a track called Omen Faustum, which is the name of that album. That song, I knew I had this idea of how that was going to go, and that it was going to be obviously the title track of the record. It had to really embody what that record was all about. It gets very technical, that song, with a really difficult solo, but I decided to record the song on my Antique T on a Telecaster, which is hard to play that guitar, like playing all the really technical stuff. So getting the tone right and the arrangement right, and then playing all of the really technical stuff on that telly, for me was just like very difficult. I think can I remember what that intro was? I think it was something like that. I can't remember. But yeah, that song was really hard to put together, and I reworked it constantly. I think it took me about 6 months just to do that one song.
Okay.
So it was very difficult, yeah.
Okay, let's talk about your technique.
Sure.
Your technique is so perfect.
Oh yeah, I wish.
I
Thank
saw
you.
you a lot. Even yesterday, when you play like a speed picking, you use a lot of the thing like a legato, like maybe a hybrid picking,
Yeah.
and economy picking.
Yes.
Please give us about some advice about your practicing.
Sure.
And find out a lot of the guitar player, they mapping on the fingerboard.
Sure.
Someone they look something like a three-note per string,
Sure,
like a clear
sure.
system.
Yeah.
And how about you?
So as weird as it sounds, I don't really strive to be a technical guitar player. It's not something I'm ever thinking about, but the music that I want to make is always forcing me to have better technique. Coming up and playing metal music and being really inspired by, Nevermore and John Petrucci and all those kinds, very interested in learning those techniques. So like anything, it's muscle memory, it's just hours and hours and hours of training the fingers, training the hands, working to a metronome is really important. So whenever I practice anything, whether it be riffs or picking or legato, I always just put on a metronome. And any tempo, mix it up, because you want to be comfortable playing, all of the subdivisions. Like 16ths at one tempo is totally different to 16ths at another. Trying to be comfortable with those things. One thing that I always appreciated in good guitar playing is clean technique. So when it sounds very clean. So that's something that I'm not a very fast player, but I'm always worried about having the technique sound nice and clean. So that's something I practice a lot of, especially with the legato, trying to keep the guitar quiet. But yeah, it's just lots and lots of practice, trying to focus on one thing, being good at it instead of being all right at lots of different things. So I notice that the older I get, if I don't practice, let's just say alternate picking very much, I get bad at it very quick. So just trying to mix it up and stay focused on whatever technique I have to use the most, which is usually influenced by, if I'm playing my live set or something like that.
Could you give me some a little bit of exercise for the economic picking or legato?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I think, for legato playing, it's useful to just say pick any scale, right? Let's just say we're playing like A minor, right? Let's just say we're doing that. Get comfortable picking it. Right, then get comfortable playing it legato, but still doing alternation on the right hand. So right, so that alternating in legato is very important, because that way your right hand just nice and relaxed, right? Then I would do, say, practice groupings, like 3 notes on one string, 5 on the next. So it's things like 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 5, right? 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 4 5. That way you can get So these things will like strengthen up that independence on the fingers. Right, or maybe you'll do like 9 notes, 5 on the neck. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 5. Right, so. Right, so just getting comfortable with different groupings, starting with something simple, like just a basic scale that you might use all the time. Those are things that I practice a lot to strengthen up the legato. Also just the groupings. So predominantly as guitarists, we're going to be playing with 1, 3, 4,
yes.
or 1, 2, 4, or 1, 3. It's just the nature of the beast. So just to get comfortable on, you know, basic stuff, like as a part of your practice routine, I would always get the metronome on and just practice my 1, 3, 4s, you know. 1, 2, 4. You know, 1, 3. Like all of those groupings, and then the classic. Right, so just those basic things. I try to allow a little bit of time in my practice to just make sure that those groupings sound sharp for the legato. You know, and then you just get the you can put them all together and get that nice kind of flowing sound.
And how about economic picking?
Yeah.
You use it a lot.
Yeah. So like economy is usually for me like usually used as a shortcut to things, just like hybrid playing is for me. So, you know, a lot of the lines that I might like to play are things like, you know, the string skipping, like. But that's a lot of work to pick, right? So for me, I just started to learn, I was like, it's much easier to go to use my fingers that are just kind of there anyway. You know, so you can play lots of cool lines, like, you know. It's much easier to use the fingers than to have to. Oh no, yeah, it's true. It's no, like when you don't do it, it's really hard. Okay. But now that I've been doing it for a long time, for me to have to go and pick every note across the guitar is quite difficult.
Okay, when you practice guitar, have you ever had any problem with the injury technique?
Yes. So when I was telling you before, after Omen Faustum, I stopped playing guitar. A big part of that was because I developed, for the first time, very bad RSI, because I was playing guitar so much over those few years, and I just wore my arms out. So I got a thing called lateral tennis elbow, or like, so RSI in both arms, stemming from where the tendons, like, you know, if I move my arm, you see like where they start here, got damaged on both arms, and that was just from overuse, playing too much. You know, I would wake up in the morning, record all day, and then do gigs, and never being terrible with warming up, not stretching, these kind of things. So when that happened, it was a big wake-up call to have to look after my arms, not overplay. I think the hardest part about that was, you know, mentally it kind of saps your confidence because you're playing, but you're also always thinking about how your arm's feeling. So it takes you out of the zone a little bit. I went to see a physiotherapist, so I had therapy for my arms and got them back again. And so now I listen to my body a lot more now. Okay. So, you know, I just try to be aware of when I'm starting to approach overplaying. Give my arms a rest for a couple of days. Yeah, it was bad.
For nowadays, how did you warm up before a show? What did you exercise for your warm up?
I mean, I wish there was time to warm up before a show. Normally you're running around doing gear and then you got to run. But I just try to, if I can get the opportunity to warm up for a show, just to play the songs. Really, the songs that I'm about to play, I might just kind of sit down and not even plugged in, just run some of the passages that I know are going to be difficult, you know, just so I can kind of build up a little bit of muscle memory for what I'm about to do before I walk out there. But normally not a lot of time before the show to warm up. You know, you're running around like crazy. So, but I try to just play the songs if I can a little bit.
For the next, about your gear. Very congratulations with your new guitar.
Thank you.
Can you talk more about it? How do you join with the Suhr Guitar, and how come the idea for your guitar? It's really new thing.
Yeah, sure, man. Okay, so when I was playing in bands before I started my solo instrumental career, I already owned 2 Suhr guitars. I was working at a music store and I was introduced to Suhr guitars by like a local legend session player, and I bought a guitar guitar off him, and that guitar made me feel for the first time ever like I wasn't restricted by the instrument. In my hands, it felt right. I felt very free to express myself. So I guess I was, starting to do my first solo album, and the guys at Suhr discovered me on the internet, and we may have had some talking back and forward on like old YouTube days. Possibly it was a case that I was a bit of a black sheep in the sense that no one was really playing heavy music with Suhr guitars. They may have been, but I wasn't aware of them. And so they asked if when I was coming out to the US if I would like to visit the factory, and I did, and that was very exciting for me. And they offered me to become an artist. And since then, we've done so many things together, and obviously at a certain point I had the wonderful opportunity to have a signature guitar model, which we have here today. It's been a wonderful relationship for a long time now, and this is the result.
Yes.
Yeah.
A beautiful guitar.
Thank you.
And this is a new thing for us.
Yes.
For this guitar and Suhr company.
Correct.
It's called blower switch.
Yes.
How come the idea for the blower?
Blower switch first came around on the Guthrie Govan model, right? But it acted as a different function. I asked the guys, which is something they like to do with every signature model they do, is that it should have a unique set of features that make it different from any other guitar that you can just go get off the wall or in their lineup. So when I was thinking of unique things for this model, I wanted to have a way to have a secondary volume position. And I thought, and that is because when I play, I'm either playing wide open like this, or off. And the only other position that I use is trying to find that sweet spot, right? Where it's just the gain down. So I haven't changed anything in the patches. I just wanted to clean it up a little bit. Right, and then, but it's difficult to get there quickly when you're on stage. So we decided to build on the back of the blower switch button. We can now have a second volume position in the guitar here, right? So wide open. So you can set it to a spot that you like. So very quickly you can go from, small clicks, and we can go straight over there. Without having to change anything on the board.
Really beautiful thing.
Thank you. Yeah, it's cool. And so it's fully customizable. If you pop off the back plate, there's a little trim pot in there.
Okay.
So, you can set it the way you like it. I can set it the way I like it. And you can tune it to every rig. So you just pop this off, there's another pot in there.
You tell me about something about your setup for this.
Oh, yeah.
It's way lower than normal.
That's right.
Because it helps you to play a lot of the hybrid picking.
That's right.
How come the idea?
Yeah, so because the tremolo bar is a big part of what I do. I'm always playing, which I get a lot of that inspiration from Jeff Beck. I try to bring that into my playing a lot. And so I just found that because I do play a lot of hybrid, I might be playing passages like, I wanted a way to be able to play and have the bar sitting comfortably in my hand while I played at the same time. Because I tend to only use it with my index finger and second finger like this, like. And so I just asked if we could bring the bar height down a little bit. So it just sits very comfortable in your hand when you're playing. Whereas normally it would be like, not too much further, but it made a big difference for me having it higher up. So on this model, the bar sits lower to the body.
Okay. And you, for now, you also have your own signature pick.
I do.
Yeah.
Yes. Here it is.
How about the material? Every guitarist always know about the material or the something like which size
Sure.
is so effect a lot with the sound.
It does.
How about you?
It does. I'm not really a gear kind of person. I tend to be the kind of player that once I have something that works, I just stick with it forever. So like, I've never changed my string gauge and, things like that. And same was with picks. So I always use jazz threes. Okay. I started playing, someone gave me a jazz three and I used that forever. And I just kind of never thought about picks until actually a student of mine who's very into good gear, he was like, oh, I've got this Hawk pick or whatever.
Internet and order.
Yeah, exactly. So he was like, have you tried this Hawk pick? They're like a boutique builder out of the UK in England. And I thought, no, I haven't. And I tried it. And I remember just feeling like, oh my God, this is so much better than it felt so nice and snappy. Had a wonderful sound on the string, whereas the Jazz 3 is quite like a plasticky feeling pick and a soft kind of sound. This has a much glassier kind of sound. I got a bunch of these picks. Rob at Hawk Picks does like a Jazz 3 size. And then eventually we decided to do a signature pick. It comes in black and tortoiseshell. And the thickness is a bit thicker than a Jazz 3. So these are 1.8 size, and they're just amazing. They're like they last so long. Like I've used one pick for months, and only after heavy playing you start to see a little bit of wear. So Hawk Picks from England.
About your effect?
Yeah.
What do you use? Did you use a fractal?
Yeah, so I've been using fractal audio gear for about 10 years now. I started with the Axe Effect. I've had the Axe FX 2 and the AX8 and the FM3 and also this guy, the FM9. I just think that there are many modelers out there these days, lots of options. For me, it's possibly a case of, what you know, so I'm very familiar with the fractal stuff. In my opinion, it's the best sounding stuff, and I have the gear that I'm modeling in here, like the Friedman stuff. So I've done the A/B tests. To my ear, there's no discernible difference. Obviously, playing an amp is excellent. It's a great experience. That feedback you get from playing in the room. And I love to do that where possible. But, my back doesn't like carrying amps upstairs and to venues that much. So I think, digital is a good solution for situations like this. Like I'm flying, I don't have a lot of stuff to bring with me. This can make a nice, easy situation, good sound for the audience. I can, obviously do MIDI, so I don't have to be touching things. It's very portable. So yeah, this is a wonderful setup for me. This is relatively new. I only picked up this FM9 when I was doing the clinic tour in the US 2 months ago. So yeah, it's fantastic. And as you can see, I've got it all wired into a board, so it's very easy just to show up a couple of cables and off we go.
About your tour?
Yes.
Okay, tell me about the problem that you encounter while on tour, or worst case that you encounter. So because it's something like this is a case study for the musician.
Okay. I mean, look, touring is, you enter the unknown a lot of the time, especially the way that I do it. We're very small scale DIY. So we've ended up in some crazy situations. Like I remember one thing is to always have your gear in good protective casing. Because once we were playing this festival in England and we had to camp in a tent in the campground before we were playing, and a huge storm came and flooded the whole place. And so we were in the tent with all of our gear and my fractal, everything, like trying not to get it wet. Thankfully, we had everything in like good protective gear. But things happen that you can't plan for. So that was one funny thing. Also stuff like, locking ourselves out of accommodations. So we have to like climb up houses to get into things. What I've always found useful when touring is to always just have a backup of everything where possible. Have some kind of situation where if something goes wrong or your guitar doesn't arrive, or you're warming up backstage and a string explodes. Make sure you're ready to kind of deal with those things. Stuff always goes wrong. It's a part of the deal of touring. It's an unnatural way to be playing music. You're often getting on stage when you're exhausted, and you're sore from carrying stuff all day or whatever it is. So it's good to just, I always think, try to look after yourself when you're touring. Like I always try to eat healthy at least, or try and sleep as much as possible, or try and just find opportunities to get my hands on the guitar that aren't in the hour before the show, because you know what it's like when you play a show. Often you're like very stressed out, and then all of a sudden you got to play guitar. So small stuff like that.
Okay, for now, which artist that you listen to them at the moment?
I think, well, this is probably a bit surprising, but there is an artist called Daniela Andrade. She's more of a kind of like folksy ambient singer, Canadian, South American girl who I've always been a big fan of. I went and saw her in LA. She has a beautiful voice. She just put out a new song called Cohete, which is lovely, and I would recommend anyone check that out. I've also been listening to Christian Scott, who is a trumpet player. Always interested in his records and, mixing it up, listening to his stuff. He does really interesting, dark jazz laced with guitar riffs, and it's just like really unique. Definitely my flavor. So that's kind of what I've been listening to at the moment. No guitar, unfortunately. Okay. Yeah. So Christian Scott, Daniela Andrade. I've been listening to the new Opeth record a bit. Opeth from Sweden, like a progressive rock metal band. Their new record is really cool. I really been listening to it mostly just for the tone and the production.
And the cover too.
Covers are great. Yeah. As far as I'm aware, they recorded that with a Telecaster and straight into an old Marshall. So it was cool to hear them playing with that kind of gear. And Stefan Bowman mixed the record, who just did such a wonderful job. I think those have really been the things I've been listening to.
Yeah, which progressive band that you love very much?
Oh man, I mean, there's so many. I mean, all the early stuff, obviously, like Rush, yes, Genesis. I mean, even Led Zeppelin back in the day.
50 and 70.
Exactly, like a lot of those guys. More of the Miles Davis, his more experimental stuff. I guess like then the modern kind of prog instrumental heavy stuff, like Dream Theater, those kind of guys. Trying to think, like Return to Forever, like Al Di Meola, like Chick Corea. Yes, all of that stuff. Love all that early stuff as well. And then today, I guess in the world that I kind of exist in the instrumental guitar world, there are so many interesting forward-thinking players. Obviously like fellow Aussie like Pliny doing amazing stuff, David Maxim, Jacob Zatecki. There are just so many guys doing so much cool stuff. Nick Johnson, I love his playing. His music is so lovely. Nick recently put out a record with Gavin Harrison on drums. I think it was called Johnson Harrison or something like that. That was a surprising cool album. I always like in Nick's playing how he never overplays. It's always about the melody. Yeah, but in the instrumental guitar world, just to get back on track, there is so much good progressive music that guys are making. And there's so much of it because everyone recording at home now, it's not too difficult for people to get a good result at home. So there's just lots of music coming, which I think is a good thing.
Okay, as you were composer, in your opinion, what song or which song in this world that you listen to that song and you feel, wow, how did they compose? It's really perfect both of technique and music. And how did they compose this song?
I think there are some things that I listen to that there's an unexplainable magic that exists beyond technique and ability. Maybe it's all of those things, but some music, I think, no matter who you are, what instrument you play, it hits you. I think like Jeff Buckley, like an example of, when you hear that, you feel so much, but you're not thinking about guitar and technique and all this kind of stuff. I suppose people comparable to that is very rare. You listen to an album, I would say anyone who's never listened to Jeff Buckley would listen to that if they would like listen to it alone, and they would feel so much. That is extremely rare and always precious and exciting to listen to when it happens. And it doesn't happen very often, but I always appreciate when it does.
Okay, which album that you listen to and this album changed your life forever?
Okay, that's easy. So The Doors, which was the first CD I got when I was little. I got a Best of the Doors album. That album changed my life because it was the first time that I heard rock music, but not like be poppy. You know what I mean? Like a lot of the big keyboard parts and different textures, and the singing was very like almost spiritual and all over the place. So hearing that Doors record, which I played so much when I was younger, made me get excited about rock music having a large experimental factor and having lots of keyboards in it and being kind of free and wild, instead of what, you know, the other side of rock music, which is very tightly arranged, everyone playing in unison kind of thing. Yeah, so there's a lot that changed my life, I think. That would be a very early example. It's too hard, that one. Oh, yeah, nah. Yeah, it's... a lot of those, and obviously the Zeppelin records, you know, when I heard those...
Every Zeppelin record.
Yeah, all of them. I'll take them all. You know, when I was in London recently, a friend of mine took me to Jimmy Page's house. And,
how do you feel?
Well, dude, I didn't want to knock on the door and be weird, but I touched the fence to try and get some magic. I was like, give me the magic. And, you know, I saw the light was on, so I was like, oh, maybe I should go knock on the door, but I didn't. But for me, Jimmy Page is like a big inspiration musically, and it was very cool to see where he lives in London.
Okay, the last one. As you were a great and excellent guitar player,
thank you.
What is the most important thing that guitar player or musicians should pay attention, but they are not?
Okay, so for me that would be, you have to think about the music first. The music. A lot of guitar players are very worried about what is happening on the guitar, technically how good they are. You know, how is all that going? Where really the guitar, it's just a musical instrument. So at the end of the day, it's about making music. I know so many great players who just so good, technical, clean, practice, that can't make music, you know? So the thing that I am always impressed by, what music do you make? Is it good music? You know, show me your music. You know, if that's not a thing or if that's something that's underdeveloped with a guitarist, I would implore them to focus on that much more than, you know, 8 hours a day. You know, because that all needs to serve music. It can't just be an exercise of technicality. I actually think that playing guitar is easy for anyone. You know, you put in the hours, you practice the shapes. Anyone can do that. Making good music, though, that comes from somewhere else. You know, so I think my advice to any player, if you're practicing anything, if you're working on technique, whatever it is, make sure or try and think about how it can serve the music you want to make. Music first.
Thank you so much for your time.
You are welcome, man.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, brother.
โอเคนี่นะครับคือบทสัมภาษณ์ของคุณเจมส์นอตเบิร์กนะครับแล้วก็ไปทดลองกันได้ที่ Sweetsound right Sweetsound this sell for this guitar อยากให้ลองมากกีตาร์ตัวนี้จริงๆผมลองแล้วแบบมากไปลองกันได้นะครับที่ Sweetsound นะครับแล้วก็เทปนี้นะครับต้องขอบพระคุณนะครับ Sweetsound นะครับแล้วก็ Suhr Guitar นะครับที่ให้โอกาสดีๆในการสัมภาษณ์คุณเจมส์แล้วเราพบกับอัลบั้มชุดใหม่พบกับผลงานใหม่ๆจากคุณเจมส์แล้วก็กีตาร์อาจจะรุ่นใหม่ I say about the new one version on the guitar recently
Yeah, awesome.
โอเครอพบเร็วๆนี้นะครับเทปนี้กีตาร์ไทยต้องลาไปแล้วครับรอพบกับเทปต่อๆไปนะครับว่าผมจะไปสัมภาษณ์มือกีตาร์ท่านใดเทปนี้ผมกับคุณเจมส์ลาไปแล้วครับสวัสดีครับ